thought I'd go quick live while I'm cycling, answer a few questions, be a bit productive at the moment. So feel free to ask questions on anything to do with stock market, investing, and the like, and I will answer them, such as how much is inflation likely to impact stock prices? Well, inflation's been fairly benign. Interest rates might have to rise a bit more to scare people into reining back price rises and corporates from borrowing too much, which seems to be more of a problem. The corporate debt market is booming. As those corporates borrow money, they're going to splash it around in higher wages, and you might think higher wages are a good idea. At the macro individual level they are, but at the macro level, not necessarily, because it can be inflationary and lead to a spiral of rising prices and unaffordability, and diminish the real value of assets. So, I think the real problem is the corporates rather than the individuals. You keep asking me questions, I'll keep answering them on this ride out that I've got. Taking a bit of a break, and then I want to go watch the football. So, a lot of questions on funds recently and fund managers. Just watch out for those fees. Funds, as I've mentioned before, when you give your money to a fund manager, they're accumulating capital from a lot of diverse sources. And the fund management industry is, I'm going to have a look at the views rather than my fat face. The fund management industry is a marketing industry. Our job is to market, to raise as much capital as possible, because our fees, not mine, but fees of retail long-only funds, are based purely on a percentage of the assets under management. So logically, to maximize profits, which is the objective of companies, to maximize profits, you've got to maximize assets under management. To do that, you've got to market like crazy. When you've got a lot of assets under management, you can't invest those as a fund manager into smaller companies. The number of companies you can put that money into without taking them over becomes ever diminishing. So the gene pool of investment becomes smaller and narrower. And as that happens, your performance necessarily diminishes. It's like picking candidates for a job interview from an ever diminishing group of candidates. Well, the probability of getting the rock stars is going to diminish because you're fishing in a smaller pool. And that's been the problem with the asset management industry all along, which is why I want people to learn how to do it themselves, please. More and more. I also want you to get fitter, so you're not like me. More and more. The other question which has come up a lot this week has been conventional career, such as accountancy, law, investment banking, private equity, venture capital, also the new careers, such as financial technology, the new banks like Revolut, Starling Bank, which are unicorn businesses, billion-dollar businesses. And also degree or no degree, or what if you've got a degree not from a top university? So let me answer those in order. First of all, the first question, which has been very popular, career. Personally, whilst I set up my asset management company 15 years ago, and it made sense to set up a hedge fund and a private equity fund, and I trained as a barrister originally. That was a long time ago, and the world has changed a lot. And today, I would be looking equally to joining, say, a fintech, if I was fresh out of university or looking for a job. A financial technology company. Why? A couple of reasons. They're growing quick, they're big and stable, and they've got a shed load of money, so you're not always constantly looking over your shoulder, unlike the traditional industries. You're not constantly looking over your shoulder, am I going to get sacked, as the next wave of cost-cutting comes. Not to say they're immune from it, but the technology firms, especially the ones which have been venture capital backed, tend to have more money. If you follow the money in life, you'll be usually, as a general rule, all other things being equal, better off than going for a bankrupt company who's on a downward spiral. If you're looking for security, which most people are, some degree of security. And it doesn't have to be financial technology, it could be health technology, cybersecurity can be anything. They want to hire people. And whilst the conveyor belt continues to go to Goldman Sachs or Deloitte or PwC, you have the advantage that you should have fewer people applying for those roles. And the pay should be greater to attract more people. So that's the job front. Now, top university, so-called, and a financial degree versus a not-so-top university and a non-financial degree to enter into finance. Well, of course, the closer you are to making it easy for the human resources department to tick all the boxes and say, yeah, that person fits our criteria. Easy is they're going to hire you. The further away you are from that, the less likely. Because HR departments tend to be pretty lazy, box-ticking people, in my experience. And they're not going to think out of the box for you, no matter how much of a wonderkind you think you are. So, if you can signal your exceptionalness in some other manner, then good. If you can't, then don't worry, you'll join the countless groups of people who didn't go to a PwC or an Accenture or Goldman Sachs, and were hugely successful and happy in their lives. I'll put the hand up to that one, that's me. So, it is not the end of the world, by any means. It can seem so when you're 21 and the like. Number of applications, another issue that often comes up. I made about 100 applications to join a set of chambers. I got 2 acceptances, 7 Stone Buildings and 12 Grayson Square. That was it. 98 rejections. I got 2 acceptances, 7 Stone Buildings and 12 Grayson Square. That was it. 98 rejections. And in case you think, well, that's because you're a dimwit, bitch. Of course you've got so many rejections. Look at you. Your interview abilities must have been a bit poor. Maybe you can't speak the language properly or something. There's something wrong with you. You may well be right. But let's not forget, I went to a top-tier university and became a fellow at that university. So I don't think the academics were the problem. I continued on in my field and distinguished myself. So it is a numbers game. It is luck. Do not think it's you. Don't take it personally. If you haven't done 100 applications, don't get disheartened. I used to like the rejections because it just saved me the trouble of wondering. Great, I got rejection from that one. Fine. I really wanted to go to that one, but that's life. So what? Do you know anybody who's been accepted at the very first thing they've chosen? No. Highly unlikely. So really, have a sense of perspective and balance. Think longer term. Okay? On those things. Thank you. And honestly, I mean, I'll tell you, my CV of failure, somebody said about positivity. My CV of failure is far, far larger than my LinkedIn CV of success. Everyone does a CV of success. And you can join me on LinkedIn. I open it up to anybody and everyone. I'm not one of those snooty people who says, no, you've got to have my personal email address and know my inside leg measurements before I connect with you. I'm up here, you're down there. Don't you deign to connect with me. No. Because I grew up in Leeds, no silver spoon, all the rest of it. And one thing I've learned is a great phrase somebody else invented, which was your net worth, which isn't the only measure of success, I know. Your net worth is determined by your networks. And for me, it was networks. That helped. Just the odd word here, a bit of help there. That helped. It wasn't long mentoring sessions. It was just an odd sentence now and again. Just a tiny little piece of information that helped. And so join me on LinkedIn, and you look at that and you think, wow, my life works. So I hope you will think that. But I can tell you about the rejections. Nobody puts that on because obviously there's no CV for that. But if I told you about all my rejections, all my failures, all the moments when I thought my life is over. Now, I want to talk to you also about wanting something badly. And I have a friend, and I've mentioned him before. He left school at 16. He is my closest friend. He is my most successful friend on many measures. too many measures of success for some one person to tick all those boxes, but he ticks a hell of a lot of them. Okay, and he went to work at Barclays, rolled his sleeves up, moved up the ranks. Then he left all of that when he got married. He had a lot of credit card debt, and he was marrying a girl, and he wanted to make sure that, financially, he wasn't bringing a burden into the marriage, because she wasn't, and he thought it was only fair he shouldn't. A burden. That's his thinking. You might agree with him. Anyway, so he said, I'm going to leave Barclays, I'm going to break out on my own, I'm going to learn something and make money. And that's what he wanted to do in the short-term need. You can tick the boxes that he was a decent bloke, looked after his mum, etc., etc. All the other things which matter, how you are to your friends, to society, charitable works, family, all of those. All of those things, you tick those boxes. But funds, money, he didn't have too much. And what he did is he just grinded. He just worked hard. He nose to the grindstone and working out solutions to problems that needed solving, finding people. I said, how did you work all that out? How did you know that you should be using these freelancers from here, and that's not the way you hire them? You hire them like this, and this was a problem that needed solving. He goes, Alfish, if you need to ask, you won't be able to do it. He wanted it badly enough that every waking hour he thought to himself, well, the game must be more than I'm seeing. It must be a higher order than somebody saying, do this, and therefore I go and do it. It must be that there's something beyond that to build my skills. It was just his attitude of, I will solve this problem one way or another. I will be street smart. I think his leaving school at 16 helped him being street smart. He's far more street smart than I am. And he could work out if somebody was actually telling him the truth or trying to sell him something, which he didn't need, and claim it was worthwhile. Anyway, he had that attitude of, I will solve the problem. It is solvable. I admire him. He's about 16, 17 years younger than me. So there's something odd. I'm an Oxford Don. He left school at 16. I went to Oxford. He went to a state school which had no track record of sending anybody to Oxbridge. We are the closest of friends because you respect the individual because he solved the problems and he had the skills. And that matters. Now, he was able to signal that, not just to me, but to anybody else we met. And you might say, well, how do I learn how to signal it? And I want to have a code to be able to write it down and say, this is the formula, follow this like a math puzzle, and the answer will be there. It's not like that, sadly. It's almost as if you've got to even work out, if somebody gives you the solution, you've got to work out, okay, how do I break this down into what the question might be, and the sub-problems. I know it sounds theoretical, but for those of you who have the kind of mindset which is saying, just tell me how to solve it, just tell me the bloody answers, I'm afraid it's not right. And Vicar would say to me, and I told him, look, I've got this slight business problem about this issue, and he'd say, try this, this, or this. And I'd experiment with the three different rough areas he'd give me an answer to. And one of those would lead me to the answer. Now, somebody's asked, what course did I study? I've got degrees in law and in philosophy, politics, and economics. What was the purpose of those degrees? How did they help me? Other than, of course, if I'm discussing politics, like your newspaper review on the BBC, and you can imagine having degrees in economics, politics, and in law help you pretty much answer anything that comes up in the newspaper review. Other than, who the hell's Gea Lippe? I do know who she is. But anyway. But they help you in your analytic thinking. And it's the thinking that's important. There's a great book I was asked to read before I went up to Oxford called Thinking About Thinking by Anthony Flew. It's people's thinking which often holds them back. Whether you want to go into business and be an entrepreneur, or you want to set up, or you just want to work your way up, accountancy at PwC, whatever it is. It's your ability to formulate judgments and think that helps. So thinking about thinking, that importance of logic. So part of the point of the university degree, it wasn't to teach me about the subject. Look, unless you're doing a vocational type degree like medicine or architecture, it's not to teach you the subject matter, it's to teach you thinking. You don't do a politics degree to go into politics. You don't need it. You know that. But it helps you in your clarity of thought and not to be sidelined. So, the ability to formulate arguments. That's what all the liberal art degrees are. And you might say, well, I don't need 3 years to do that. No, you don't need 3 years to do that. You might learn it elsewhere. But for God's sake, learn it, because the successful business people I know, and I know a hell of a lot of them, I co-founded the UK chapter of the world's largest entrepreneur mentoring organization. The world's largest entrepreneur mentoring organization is an organization called TIE, the Indus Entrepreneurs, TIE.org. TIE.org. Home is in Silicon Valley. It was founded by the people who started Sun Microsystems and Hotmail, and its alumni include individuals like the CEO of Microsoft, the CEOs of Amazon, and so on. I co-founded the UK chapter, so I know and have met incredibly successful people, and they all had that ability of analysis. Now, don't get me wrong, they all lost loads of money along the way. They just had more in the upside than the downside. I'm talking about money because we're talking about business and it's a measurement. You might say, yeah, but were they nice people? No, some of them weren't. So in that sense, they were failures. Were they charitable people? Some of them weren't. So in that sense, they were failures. But in terms of business success, on the whole, their judgment was marginally better than those without good judgment. The judgment's the most difficult thing in the world. I apologize for the sound. Let me stop it for a second, just so you know where I am and why there's so much sound. Ooh, that's right. It's Richmond Park. Sorry for the heavy panting and the wind and the rest of it. Right, so let's continue with this. I'm still very considered, but enjoy. Alpesh, do you need entry-level Python, Excel, automation intern? I'm afraid I don't. However, I'm sure others would. So I apologise that I don't. But don't be disheartened that I don't. It's worth asking, isn't it? So I'm just putting this back on my thing. It is always worth asking. Nothing wrong with asking. The number of people that have got roles in this, as the Bible says. I'm going to turn around, I think. I'm enjoying talking to you people. Ask me any other questions as well. You might wonder, why did I get into finance? And you might think, it's because words make money. When I was a student, I wanted to meet the world's leading traders because I thought I might want to be a trader full time. And I thought, if I want to be a trader full time and I want to devote my life to something, I better meet the world's best at it. Because I didn't want to, well, obviously, if I want to do anything, I want to be the best in the world at it if I can, or at least have a shot at whatever it might be. I looked at myself in the mirror and thought, son, athletics is not for you. So you better do something where you're using your brain, because your body modeling, not so much. So I went into meet the world's leading traders. And I thought, well, how the hell are they going to meet me? Nobody gave me the answers to these things. Where I worked out that they might meet me is if I said I'm writing a book for the Financial Times. Hey, who wouldn't want to be interviewed by the Financial Times in a book if you're a trader, no matter how rich you are? And that's what I mean by wanting something badly enough and thinking up ideas and ways of solving the problem to make it happen. Okay, so what happened? I got to meet them. They became mentors, as a result of which I, several years later, had the strategies to set up my hedge fund, both the business strategies and the trading strategies. That book, Mind of a Trader, will put me on the path towards finance. My point is, you've got to want it enough that you think of the solutions to any problem you've got and go out and get it. And if you don't want something badly enough, that's fine. That's a sign. Don't pursue things you don't want badly enough, but what's the point? Why would you? Okay? It's only the things that you want badly enough. And if you think, I don't know what I want badly enough, that's okay too, because you don't often know until you try a lot of different things, have a lot of ideas. I didn't know what I wanted. And for some odd reason, I really like trading since a young age, for investing and trading. I just like the financial markets. And it was, to be honest, it was something that happened when I was 12 years old, when my family didn't have much money at all, and I felt a bit of a waste, because I was going to school and not able to help, as a 12-year-old couldn't. And that's when I thought to myself, well, I'm going to make sure I earn enough money. So that was the reason, and that's what got me into it. I thought there's two ways I'm going to be able to succeed. One is writing. So I focused on the art of writing, the art of rhetoric, the art of speech making, and I've written 18 books now. And at the age of 12, I also focused on investing, and I loved it. I loved it. The idea that I get a return from just being a capitalist pig and somebody else's labours, all the things Karl Marx hated about capitalism, I thought, well, that's the system I'm in, so I better make the most of it and become a capitalist. So anyway, so then I went into asset management, but to do that, I had to meet these people. And they weren't just going to meet me because I wrote to them, oh, will you meet me, please? It's not going to happen. There has to be something else, something in it for them. And I approached the Financial Times and said, look, I've got 10 of the world's leading traders. Tell a lie. I approached 25 other publishers first. And the 25th one said to me, we reject you, but have you thought about speaking to the Financial Times? And that's the other benefit of rejection. Not only does it tell you what you shouldn't do, but the rejection just might tell you what you should. And rejection number 25 said to me, have you thought about Financial Times? So I wrote to Financial Times, who turned out to be the best bloody, most prestigious financial publisher. And why I haven't thought of them first, who knows? Okay? Luck has got so much to do with success in life. But you know what? I put myself in a position to be lucky. How did I put myself in a position to be lucky? I just kept getting rejection letters. If you keep firing out bloody applications, you're going to be more likely to find somebody who tells you what you should do than if you sit at home and don't do anything and wait for divine providence or the voice of God to appear in your ears. It's not going to happen. So I put myself out there. I put myself out there in a position to get rejected in order to be in a position to win. I didn't know that's what I was doing. I just, most lucky people, I was a lucky fool. It worked out all right for me. So Financial Times said, yeah, okay, we'll do it. And I got the traders and I got the FT and the book got published. They became mentors and advisors. And the book opened up doors to TV shows, a column in the FT, which then helped me raise capital for my fund. Is that replicable? No. Was it great? Yes. Does the end result seem easy when I describe it? Yes. Was it hard? You better believe it was freaking hard. Right? As is anything worthwhile doing. So don't be disheartened by rejections, but put yourself in a position to be lucky. Because 90% of it is luck. And how do you put yourself in a position to be lucky? Do the kinds of things which mean that should luck come your way, you're likely to get run over by it. Like, put yourself out there. Oprah Winfrey, I think it was, who said, success is opportunity meeting preparation. So get prepared. You don't know when opportunity is going to arise. That's life. If you're prepared as I was, because I already had when I was told apply to the FT, I had the book pitch. I had the proposal. I had everything ready. I had the interviewees named and lined up. That's preparation. Success is preparation meets opportunity. And you define success as you see fit, friends. You define it as you see fit. But be prepared for it. If you're unprepared, you're buggered. Because guess what? I'm going to be next to you and I'm going to be prepared and I'm going to win. Okay? So that's another thing that I would say on success. As you get older, as I am, late 40s, I know, what, late 140s, Uncle Alpesh, late 140s? You're never in your late 40s? Genetics and hasn't been good to you, mate. As I get older, you want to do more legacy stuff. All the things you've learned, you want to share. I launched a campaign for a million, campaignforAmillion.com, which is to teach 1 million people how to invest. Why? Because I see people in their SIPs and ISAs or saving, or people in their 30s. People in their 20s usually haven't saved up enough to be thinking about investing. They should just educate themselves on investing. But in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and they see IFAs ripping them off with fat fees, they see fund managers underperforming and charging fees for the privilege. So my campaign for $1million.com was created for that purpose, to help people. Do you know what? You shouldn't be looking at me. You should be looking at this gorgeous view. Show you the view instead. Yeah, have a look at that. Let's hope I don't get run over or something. That's far better view, I think. Look at me. Yeah, so that's what happened. But you don't think about legacies in your 20s, obviously. You think about it in your late 40s and what am I going to leave behind that's worth happening. That's why I wrote the book, or the books. It was something to leave behind. Right, let's have a look at another question that might exist. Might be out there. Alpesh, do you need... Right, no, we did that one. Any other question? That's not that many questions, not that many people. Who the hell would do, like me, a live
when the FA Cup final's on. Work experience courses appropriate for a 16-year-old. Yes, they are. Most definitely. I started as 12. My wife thinks I'm weird for that reason, but I don't think I was confused when I was 9. And I'm not that's just how it happened. So yeah, 16. You're not too young. Often, young people discount themselves. Remember, my wife, who, by the way, happens to be 11 years younger than me, I know it's not because I know what you're thinking. So, as you know, it's the old joke, isn't it? When the 30-year-old supermodel is why she married the 90-year-old billionaire. What was it that you saw in the 90-year-old billionaire? But anyway, she's younger than me. She said, when we got married, she said, will you be okay to leave financial responsibilities of sorting things out with me, with her? And I said, oh yeah, because you won't think I'm too young. And she was in her 30s, early 30s, when I married her. I said, listen, I think Alexander the Great conquered the known world by the time he was about 32. Jesus had sown the seeds of a new faith by the time he was 34. I think you're old enough in your 30s to take on a shed load of responsibilities, let alone in your 20s. So, yeah, I think young people often, even if they're 16, think, oh, I'm too young. And I think that's not their fault. It's the fault of people older than them who don't give them the responsibility very often. And I think it's worth giving people responsibilities and allowing them to prove themselves, young, old, or otherwise. And the thing with my apprenticeship, my work experiences, I've got people from around the world. People say, wait a minute, I'm not sitting next to you in the office. Mate, nobody's sitting next to me in the office. There's a COVID lockdown. And they say, well, how can I get the same experience as if I was in the office? Well, if you're in the office, I'd be sending you documents, electronically, which I still will, on my Telegram channel every day of things that interest me. Yeah, but what if I've got a question and I don't understand something? I said, well, ask me, because in actual fact, if you go through the materials and everything that I've taught, which was created to answer every single possible question on investing, so I created it to make it efficient for me, to scale up my business and teach my staff, and then we opened it up from my staff to other people. Okay? So yes, you're not too young at 16. The shoulders of responsibilities you should already be on with you. I remember my uncle saying to me when I was 16, we want you to start opening up some of the bills so you know what the incoming and the outgoings are in family expenditures. Nothing wrong with that. Quite right. Good experience, good training. So when you actually have to do it for real, nothing shocks you. Preparation. It's the greatest way of not being fazed or stressed by things. Preparation. Okay, let's see if there's other questions I can answer. Good people. Hey, good people on there. It's the most number I've ever had. Can I talk about macro? You sound like James Corden. He's as chubby as I am as well. We are macro investing indicators using Excel. Talk about macro investing. I'll talk about macro investing. Why are you so smart? Genetics. A friend of mine says it's the Lucky Sperm Club. There's a sign. There's a great thing in the film. Great line in the film Margin. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. If you're like me and a geek in finance, you love all this. And Jeremy Irons is the chairman of the bank, and he wants to be explained why his firm is about to go bust. And he says to some junior analysts, now explain it to me as if you would a golden retriever. I can assure you it wasn't brains that got me where I am. And the funny thing is, brains can get in the way. So going back to my friend who left school at 16, now in his 30s, and left school at 16, why is he financially more successful than I am? Even though I've got the Oxford degrees and all the rest of it. And the reason is, we think that he had fewer opportunities, which allowed him to focus. He asked fewer questions. He didn't overanalyze because he didn't know to overanalyze. He didn't have the tools with which to overanalyze. So he had an advantage for success, which was problems got narrowed down because of the tool set he had. There's an old saying, to a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. But when you've been in university and you have the perceived advantage of intelligence, guess what happens? You've got a massive tool set
So everything looks like a freaking hammer, a nail, sorry, everything looks like a nail, a screw, plank of wood. We've got all that. Now, my friend who didn't go to uni and everything, he had very few tools. So he could only focus on a narrow set of opportunities. Whereas people like me, we're like kids in a bloody candy store. We can do anything. And the downside of that is we try to do bloody everything. Like a kid in a candy store. And you try and hold everything and everything falls out of your arms. Whereas the snail,
If you take the tortoise from the hare. You take the tortoise,
just takes one or two sleeps, walks out, ends up with more. So, yes, I am on traditional IQ measures intelligent, and that's the Lucky Sperm Club or the Lucky Ovary Club. However, do not think that means an innate advantage for wealth creation. And if you think it does, I remind you of this. I can hire people with 180 IQs for about 50 grand a year. Okay? Look at those beautiful creatures. I happen to be vegetarian, so I particularly appreciate animals like we discussed. Right? Macro investing. So we do what's called bottom-up investing, not top-down. In other words, we don't take a view at the macro level of, oh, this country's doing well, this one's doing poor. We take the view of how are individual companies doing based on their cash flow, their profits, their assets, their earnings, their growth of earnings, their growth of sales, their consistency of delivering those figures, and their outperformance of others in the market, i.e. their competitive advantage and sustainability of it. Okay? Now, whether you choose to invest or not, these are important things to learn about, because if you're going to work for a company and you know these concepts, that company is going to appreciate you because those concepts are relevant to every single damn company on the planet. Okay? And so whether you want to be an employee or an employer, that's going to be relevant. Okay? To move up the ladder. Unless you don't want to move up the ladder, or you're just going to have, let's say, I don't know, a civil service job where you're not dealing with business at all in any way. But even there, you're dealing with profit and loss. Everything has to have a business case. So learn about those issues. Profit, loss, cash flow, balance sheet. You don't need to be a genius in it. But a superficial understanding will at least give you an advantage over somebody who has no understanding. Okay? So we look at those things and we bottom up invest. Which companies have those numbers which stack up to us? So that allows us to get names which you've all heard of, as well as names I hadn't ever heard of and get good returns from. To give an example of each, names you've all heard of, it might throw up an Apple to me. Names you haven't heard of, it might throw up a Marine Max or a Best of the Best to me. And they do surprisingly well. I think, oh, I've never heard of those, but the numbers were amazing. In other words, I don't care what a company makes, whether it's sweets or whether it's rockets. It still needs to, it's just that you've delegated it to some nut who's going to be charging a massive fee as a pension fund manager and underperforming whilst his kids go to private school and he takes 2 week vacations on the back of your fees while you're working your arse off. So you've got to learn what investing's about. Otherwise you're going to get ripped off and not know what questions to ask. Okay? I'm trying to cycle whilst holding a phone. I'm on how you can let me put a bit of stuff in it.
But you can all hear me clearly. Where are you? Richmond Park. Hence the deers. Sound like... Okay. Any other questions? Do you have to be incredibly good at maths to be in finance? Depends what job you're going to do in finance. Let me give you an example. So I had the maths prize at school. And you might think, yes. So the answer is yes. I had a maths prize in A-level and at GCSE at school. Does it help? Well, it helps in all things in life, doesn't it? To have more skills than fewer. But in my field, tuning is a bit exceptional. Only if you're going to be a quant, so you're going to do the quantitative stuff. If you're not, then it doesn't matter. I hired a lady called Naomi Waste when she was. Only if you're going to be a quant, so you're going to do the quantitative stuff. If you're not, then it doesn't matter. I hired a lady called Naomi Waste when she was 21 after she did an English degree at university to to be my assistant. She was my assistant for 2 years, and she now manages funds worth about £10 billion. And I'm proud to say, in all her documentation, you can find it on the internet, she writes, where she started a career with Affinion, my company. She did English literature. Was she good at math? I'm not sure, I don't think so. She could probably do arithmetic, and she had a calculator. But then, I wasn't asking her to be a quantitative analyst or be an Excel supremo. But if I needed somebody to be an Excel supremo, I'll go out and get an Excel supremo. I can't do that stuff. I have another lady who works for me. There aren't enough women in finance. I can, without positive discrimination, trying to promote Kanira Shah. And yes, she did engineering at Imperial. And she was an Excel supremo. And we invested in wind farms in Eastern Europe as we do clean tech and healthcare investment from the private equity side. And she'd have to climb up the wind farms and check everything and do the maths on stuff as well, separately. So, yeah, she was a maths suprema. So for her it helped, but that's because we were looking for that. So do you have to be good at maths? Well, that's not really the question. The question is, what will depend on the skills somebody's looking for? And if they're not looking for your set of skills, and nobody has every single set of skills around, you'll find a role separately, but not everybody in finance has to be good at maths. So don't worry. And here's a little trick I'll teach you about getting into finance. Okay? Once you get into a firm, let's say it was Goldman Sachs, it's a hell of a lot easier to move internally. So let's say you get in and you're in the HR department, for argument's sake, and let's assume for a second you want to go to Goldman Sachs. HR department's the best department you can get into, the easiest one, let's say. Guess what? It's a lot easier to try and move in to, trading. It'll take a few steps to get there, won't be once you're through, than it is not being able to get in at all and applying for the top post. However, I always say, whatever job you're looking for, always start at the top and work your way down. So for me, if I wanted anything, any role, I'd apply for the best in that industry or that sector and then work my way down. I'm not going to self-select myself for failure. Who knows, I might get lucky and I get selected for something with the top firm because nobody's thought to ask and nobody wrote for the CEO. I had one chap, he, during lockdown, sent his CV to my firm, actually hand-delivered it to my firm at 84 Brook Street. And because we're not in the office at the moment, I got a message from reception to say, you've got CV here. Now I'm going to take notice of that. I'm not saying it means it gets hired. I'm going to take more notice of that. Like, oh, okay, this guy's hungry. I'd rather have a hungry, likable person who's not got every top grade than somebody with top grades who's a bit entitled, lazy, and not quite that. By the way, all firms, you might think your exams are the most important thing that there are. All firms do their own internal tests. So I actually don't care what you tell me they taught you at university. If I give you a shot, or anybody else like me, we'll have our own internal test that we'll ask you to sit. And the reason is we need to make sure you can do what we need doing, not what your university taught you. Because quite frankly, what your university taught you is neither here nor there for us, is it? What do we care what they taught you? What we care about is can you do what we need to know? One thing I always say, if you're going to do finance, learn discount cash flow. It's really easy. It's just arithmetic, but it's tricky. And it's the things in finance which are easy but tricky, i.e. arithmetic, but a bit tricky, than the things which are truly complicated, like, I don't know, advanced level calculus, I guess, is truly complicated. Okay? So, discount cash flows. I think they come in handy everywhere. But it's just a technique that if you can do that, it'll give you a degree of confidence to do a lot of other things as well. Okay, can the Fed really increase interest rates? Who knows? I tell you one thing, people think that people in finance are in the forecasting business. I'm not. I'm not trying to forecast with some crystal ball what's going to happen in the future. I'm in the business of making sure that if the markets go up, then of course we'll benefit. Well, everybody looks like a genius when the markets go up, don't they? And they all take credit for it, even though it's got nothing to do with them. But if the market should fall, then the kind of assets we hold or stocks we hold won't fall as much and will more likely rebound more.
So in one sense, I don't worry about the things I can't control, like will there be a new virus? Will there be a world war? Or whatever else. And that works really, really well. Would you believe? So I don't try, therefore, to gamble on short-term noise or news, such as, oh, I think they're going to raise the rates, so let me gamble on these stocks, not those. Let me see if I can out-analyze everybody else on the planet. I don't want to play that game. That is a game people can play. You're better off going to Ladbrokes and placing that bet than on the financial markets with your livelihood. So that's the way to look at it. Okay. So will they raise rates? I think they'll probably first give a really big set of heavy hints, because
The point of raising interest rates is actually to manage people's behavior, ultimately, and their spending habits. Now, if you can do that through the threat, and if you haven't read about game theory, I highly recommend it. Whatever profession you're going to go into, whether it's finance or not, read up about game theory. There's a book called Thinking Strategically. Again, before I went up to Oxford, I was told by my tutor to read that. Thinking Strategically about game theory. Whether it's politics you're going to go into or economics. And if you can signal to people that you're willing to do something, it can save you a hell of a lot of time, energy, hassle, because you don't have to do it if their behavior changes in the belief of the threat. So signals, threats, they're the language of economics and modern economics and game theory. So I suspect the Fed won't just do a surprise raising rates, which will spook everybody and make them worried and think, what the hell, we can't forecast plan, this is unpredictable. They will send a bloody telegram, hand delivered, and give a heck of a forecast plan, this is unpredictable. They will send a bloody telegram, hand delivered, and give a heck of a lot of heavy hints that they're going to do that. Oops, let me share this view with you, because it's too good not to. Okay? Low unemployment. There's a load of, oh, by the way, listen, I wouldn't argue with you. There's a whole load of arguments why they shouldn't raise rates, and there's a whole bunch of arguments why they should. There always are. You know the old saying, put two economists in a room and you'll get three opinions.
So, I'm not going to argue, yes, low interest rate, low
unemployment and blah, blah, blah means low rates. Supply of money flow means higher rates or anything else.
There's an argument to be made on both sides. One thing that I learned in my law degree, which has really served me well in life and kept me calm and helped manage arguments and helped me in negotiations, is this. Two reasonable people come to different conclusions. There isn't always one definitive right answer. Two reasonable people can come to different conclusions, and both conclusions can be reasonable. Now, that's important to know in life and in negotiations, because it really helps you. By the way, as a barrister, because I had to learn negotiation, we have a vocational course where we are taught negotiation skills, advocacy or speaking, and formulating arguments, and other skills. Anyway, because I had to learn about.
Yeah, am I going to get into trouble for holding my phone on camera? Let's see. What's going on? Oh, I think I can go. 1 second, guys. Let me just put this on. So, as I navigate around and turn things. One thing I learned in negotiation was, if you can start off with the phrase, I agree with you, you'll do incredibly well. Because it'll start with a common ground than otherwise. And it'll help you a lot.
Anyway, I wasn't as good in negotiation as I was in advocacy. Where I got one of the top marks. I was really pleased with that, because I was sort of the shyest boy at school. I couldn't even talk to people. And then decided if I'm going to be a barrister, I better snap the hell out of it. Otherwise I'm going to not be very good. And then to get, I think it was in the top 10 out of 1,000 for advocacy. So, moral of that story, yeah, shy boy in school can do it. You might think, oh, I'm a hopeless case. No, decide through will that, no, I'm going to turn this around and here's how I'm going to do it and have a plan of action. And the best way to formulate plans of action is break it into smaller steps. By the way, skills that I really like amongst employees is not the degree or which university they went to. Project management skills, they help. The ability to write reports, write clearly, grammar, vocabulary, make sure your spelling is wrong. Computers can do that. So if somebody can't even do a grammar check and get their spelling right and write reports, make them simple, well designed. So if you've got these skills, especially project management, because that implies problem solving, and you can come to your boss with solutions, not problems, you're laughing. You'll be streets ahead of somebody. I've got employees to this day who still come to me with solutions. Come to me with problems. And I just look at them and say, what do you think the solution is? And 3 minutes later, they come up with a solution, and I think, so why the flipping it could you have done that? Why do you not take some initiative and say to me, here are 3 possible options that I suggest, and I recommend this one? Instead of, would you do the thinking for me? Guess what? I'll tell you what else.
I hired a girl once.
Her name was Kirsty. And she became my assistant. She'd left university with an English degree. It's not that I've got something for English degrees, but anyway. And she joined me. Actually, I didn't do the hiring. I don't do the interviews for the people that I just mentioned, so I can't take credit for hiring them directly. I just approved the final so-and-so because the interviews just take up too much time. So I now started it. But anyway, Kirsty, about a year in, I said to her, Kirsty, you know what? You could run my company. You could be CEO. And I gave her a few tasks, sort of CEO-type tasks, and things to do. And I looked at her answers and I said, I told you could do it. Anyway, she went from being my secretary to onwards now she's a lawyer, she's a solicitor. Which again, I want kind of people who've got ambition. Now, Goldman Sachs might want you to be there for life and be chained to their desks and be a slave to the partnership and all the rest of it and, all hail the partnership and work 24/7 and we don't care about your private personal life. You're our personal slave and that's why we pay you a little bit more than you might think your soul's worth. But actually everybody else will probably want you to be ambitious enough to want to leave there. Because that means that you're really good. Sure. Susan Monaghan, who worked for me, now is global head of marketing at Citibank. She was my secretary. And again, the point was, Susan, you're really good at this. Go leave and go do amazing things. Because I'll be incredibly proud, but also, you can. And develop it. I mean, that's the role of a CEO, develop people's confidence in themselves, elevate them, push them ahead. Because you get a lot of satisfaction out of doing that. And in yourself. Any other questions? Do you have... Oh, right. I agree. I think the Fed actually... Ride bike. Oh no, God, what kind of bike is it? Yeah, sort of. There's nothing special. I think I paid about £100 for it. When I was a kid, my bikes kept getting nicked. So I thought, I'm not buying a bloody expensive bike. I won't sweat it. So I think I must have paid about 100 quid. Maybe I got 120 for it. Still gets me from A to B, doesn't it? Now I don't have the stress. My dad taught me that. I was young, I wanted to buy lots of expensive cars. He said, son, if you buy expensive cars, that's all well and good. You're always going to be worried. Somebody's going to dink it, scratch it, this, that, and the other. You're never going to relax. And I thought, maybe he's right. Obviously, like any good son, I didn't take his advice. But with bikes, I certainly did. And it allows me to be a lot more relaxed. I mean, you can get £3 bikes. Bikes. Yeah, guess what? I'm going to be worried that somebody looks at it the wrong way, might scratch it. I mean, I'm not a professional cyclist. It's too good for me, those bikes. They're too good for me. So, here we go. Somebody told me the score in the football. I completely messed up the FA Cup final timings. I'm too far from home to get there in time. So, my good friends, best way to get into day trading. Now you're talking. So, as you might know, I've written 18 books on trading online. One of those books got me an interview on CNN when it was published. The sports TV channels love interviewing authors. So they interviewed me. And the global head of television at Bloomberg happened to see that interview. And I got a call the next day saying, "You're really good on CNN. We'd like to give you your own show as our online trading expert." So 2 days a week, I would do my own show and clips, and I was basically allowed on air whenever I wanted. Plus, I had a 1 hour slot as well on the Wednesday night and the Tuesday night. It was flipping dream come true. But there, that tells you a lot, doesn't it? Well, success is preparation, meeting, opportunity. The opportunity came along because I was prepared for that bloody book on the subject. Talk about preparation, published by the FT. And I've already told you how my books came about. The statistics on day trading are these, and the FCA in the UK validates these statistics. About 80% of people lose money day trading or trading short term. Now you might say, actually, that's not too bad, because 90% of all businesses, all entrepreneurs, fail within 3 years. So for 80%, 90%, you've got 20% who are succeeding, and I want to be in that number. And you might think, well, how much should a day trader make? How should somebody trading on their own account? So I asked this to Bill Lipschutz in my first book, Mind of a Trader. Bill Lipschutz was the global head of foreign exchange trading at Salomon Brothers. Now I'm going out to the road, so I'm going to put my phone down and so you can see me, see my face and double chin. I said to Bill, how much should a private trader make? One of the reasons why I got into trading. And Bill said to me, 100% per annum. And I thought, you don't do that. He goes, no, we can't do it because we've got more risk management. But a private investor, because they've got smaller capital and nobody to answer to. No, that was his number. Okay, Bill Lipschutz, global head of foreign exchange trading at Salomon, said 100%. So that's why people get into a low probability of success but high returns means expected outcome strong. With investing, how many people make money, you might ask? Well, over any rolling 3-year period, something like 80 to 90% of people make money if they're investing. How do we know this? Well, just look at the stock market index over any rolling 3-year period. 80% of the time it's up. So that's a good proxy for saying how many make money during those periods. Okay? So day trading, how do you get into it? Well, I wanted to give you that warning first about the stats. How do you get into it? I put a whole load of resources together on my links in the bio for whether you want to be a trader or investor. You'll look at the trading and you might say, Avtesh, no way, I want to do this. And most of you will. You'll say, I want to be an investor. And that's great. A minority of you will say, no, I like this. I'm going to give it a try. If you do decide to give it a try, please start with a demo account. Please know you can lose a lot of money. I've been an expert witness in court cases where day traders have been prosecuted criminally. And I've been an expert witness for the defense, because you might not know this. If you go bankrupt through negligence, and that could be day trading or any form of bankruptcy, which might have arisen through negligence, then that's a criminal offence. Bankruptcy isn't a criminal offence, but negligent bankruptcy is. People don't know that under English law. So I had to testify as an expert witness whether or not those individuals in the dock who were going to face a potential prison sentence were negligent. How do you do that? You determine their strategies. Did they have a strategy? If they didn't, they were negligent. Right? So my point to you, my friends, is please be warned. I've seen horror stories with people who've decided they're going to be day traders and the like. Okay? But if you want to try it, because we live in a free society, have a look at the links in my bio. And I put my books there you can download as well for free. It's all free. And you can learn about it. You know, it'd be a bit crass of me to say, well, I do it, but you shouldn't. But just be cautious. Alright? So that's my point with that side of stuff. How long have you been working for Lidl? Now I'm delivering for Deliveroo, mate. We've got a new orange thing. The thing about comedy is, it's great if it's funny, but when it's not even comedy, is it? With my speeches, I give a lot of speeches, I put a lot of humour in there. And I love it when people heckle. How long have I been working for Lidl? I don't know, mate. Ask your dad. I saw him this morning when he clocked in. You know, you really are asking for trouble, aren't you? First you're not funny, and then you get slapped down.
Never argue with somebody who's controlling the mic. Mate. Who's next? What other things have we got?
Enjoy the ride. I know. It's sunny. Guess what? Look at that around.
They're going to put the bridge down. I'm going to have to carry them around the bridge. Okay, guys, I'm going to talk to you a bit longer because I've now got to start doing CrossFit. So it's going to come in handy, isn't it? What other questions have we got? Thoughts on the future of cryptocurrency? Brilliant question on cryptocurrency. So I have a FOMO investment, fear of missing out investment on crypto. I don't know whether cryptocurrencies are going to be huge or not. There's one key reason they're not, which is money laundering, corruption, and the like. You're saying, well, you can do that with normal currency. Yeah. You think governments want a new headache? No. So, in their current format, probably not going to be huge. However, who knows? As a marketing gimmick, we know they could be big. So, what does that mean? It means my FOMO investment is hold for 10 years. Either it'll be worth nothing, which tells you how much I put into it, because if it's going to be worth nothing, guess what? I didn't exactly auction my mother-in-law on eBay and put the proceeds into crypto. It'd be too risky. It might be worth nothing. Or it might be worth tenfold. But I don't look at it every day. I don't care. Ripple, Ethereum, and Bitcoin before you ask. And just so you know, what an amazing financial genius I am, my Ripple is down 90%. I know. This is the point at which people say to me, YOLO! To the moon! Future. So, yeah, and the other two, I don't know, I'm not looked at it. I got them a couple of years ago. They're probably down as well, who knows. But Ripple's down 90%. So yeah, I'll wait another 7 years and then have a look at it and decide. I'll let you know in 7 years my answer to that question. Blockchain's useful. I work with companies. I have a role with the government where I look for outstanding technology companies. They asked me about 15 years ago to look for outstanding technology companies for them to bring to the United Kingdom, bring the intellectual property. I don't know if you know this, but the wealth of nations is directly proportionate to the amount of intellectual property those nations create, often measured in terms of patents, but there are other measurements, obviously such as copyright and so forth. So modern governments seek to acquire or develop intellectual property. In the old days, you just shot the other person, nicked his gold. Now that gold is intellectual property and you're not allowed to steal it, officially. So you invite them over to your country to grow. Anyway, so what happens as a result of that? To show you there. To show you this. Oops. Okay. I can have the see what I've got cycling. And blockchain, in that role, I deal a lot with blockchain companies, and they use blockchain for a variety of things. Now, to me, blockchain is a glorified Excel spreadsheet, but I am told by IT engineers I trust that it's really useful. A distributed ledger technology. So blockchain will be useful. I spoke to an executive of Ripple and I said, listen, mate, what language, Ripple, does it correlate to the price of XRP, the Ripple coin? He goes, no, I wish people wouldn't confuse the two. No correlation whatsoever other than bullshit marketing. So I said, wait a minute, does that mean blockchain has got nothing to do with the price of cryptocurrency? He goes, yeah. What about Ethereum language and Ethereum coin? No correlation other than confusion and marketing. Cheers. That's useful to know. That's like saying the uptake of the internet is directly proportionate to Google share price. Well, there's obviously some correlation. You know, more people on the internet, more likely to use Google services, but it's a pretty
thin conclusion causation. So anyway, that's useful with crypto if you want to know. I continue filling in lottery tickets, to be honest with you,
rather than buying cryptocurrencies, but like I said, I've got a FOMO investment in them. So I've got a foot in both camps. Is it going to succeed? Is it going to fail? I'm not betting in the short term what's going to happen. I'm looking at 10 years. Either I've lost all my money or, it'll have done nicely. And I'll have wished I put more in. I can't put more in because I didn't know what the future was going to be and I didn't want to be bankrupt by putting more in at this stage. And that's how I think of things.
try to make them binary when difficult decisions need to be made.
I try and strip the decision down until it's binary. Yes, no.
Other questions, my friends. Other questions on my bike ride. You know what? One ought to be mindful, hopefully.
I'm going to do the last bit mindfully, my friends, before I get home. So I'm going to go at the moment, I'm afraid. Thank you all for being on. And sorry I couldn't answer everybody.